Travel To channel again. I'm Kelly, in case you didn't tune in last week and see what we had for packing tips. I just wanted to let everybody know that will continue. I will continue to do some of the packing tips later on, but since we are in the middle of the trip that has been announced, that I was talking about in the video last week, we're going to start doing some of those things. So we'll shift over once we get all of this together. So basically, where we're at right now is the travelers have spoken on the Facebook page, and I will be going to Savannah. So Savannah, I picked a couple places that were close for me just because it would be easier for me to get there. I'm really excited. I haven't spent a lot of time in Savannah, so it'll be really fun. And so what we're gonna do, I don't need plane tickets this time because it's within a driving distance for me. So it's probably about a 4-hour drive. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Now, I may be able to do some segments also kind of talking about air if that's something that you need, or, you know, doing package deals and what you can do to find the best offer out there. But for right now, we're just gonna go ahead. We're gonna talk about some hotels, some attractions, and using some of those packing tips that I was talking about in the last video. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'm going to show you how you can kind of look around at some of the websites to try to get the best price. So I like to use a lot of different sites. I did this before I became a travel agent, although I only had access to what the general public has access to. What I do now for my clients and for myself is I still utilize a lot of different websites. The reason being is that for some days and some times you're going to be able to find some better options with some different people. So hopefully, you know, you'll get a hold of me and I can kind of help you out with that. If you don't and you are doing it by yourself, you will want to use some different options, some different search engines, and see what you can come up with. Don't take the first one. Also, a lot of times if you go to your travel agent or you go to another source on the internet to look for something, you are more than likely going to get a cheaper price away from that site. Even if you go to that hotel site, if you have one in mind that you really like, and you go to that hotel site and you look at the site and they say, well, this is the best rate that we can give you. Most of the time it is not. And a travel agent, we have access to things that a lot of times the public can't see. So sometimes we can get you a better deal than what you're finding. I will tell you what I do. I can't speak to other travel agents. I don't know if they feel the same way, but like I mentioned in the last video and some of the things that I talk about on my, my Facebook page, and I do apologize for the glare, guys. It's the time of day. I'm trying to get a video put on for today so that we have some time, but usually the time of day I have, there's a little bit of a glare. So eventually that will not be a problem, but right now it is. So I do apologize. Hang in there with me. Maybe I can move around, see if I can see if I get the glare off my head. I do apologize. Anyways. So one of the things that I like to do, as I was saying, and that I can't attest to other travel agents, is looking around to try to get you a good deal. I like to get a budget from people up front. If you're doing this for yourself, this is another thing that I suggest. Make sure you know what your budget is, or at least have an idea of it, because it makes things a little bit easier. If you are not flying, your hotel is going to be the bulk of your expenses. If you are flying, depending on where you're flying to, then that usually will be the bulk of your expenses, or depending on what kind of travel you are. Some of us aren't budget travelers. Some of us like to go and we like to splurge. And, I do that sometimes. Usually when I do that, my kids aren't with me. But, when you are traveling on a budget, it's a good thing to know ahead of time. And keep in mind that when you are budgeting for your trip, you need to keep in mind the type of hotel that you're looking for, if you're willing to drive or if you can drive, because if you fly, sometimes getting there with transportation might be a little bit more expensive, but renting a car is always a great option if that's something that you feel like you would want to do. And also, just trying to know whether or not you're going to be able to stick to that, or if there's a little bit of leeway. If you were working with me, you need to, that's something that we would need to talk about. If you're working with another travel agent, that's something you want to talk about with them, is just make sure that they know, so that they can give you kind of a realistic idea of what you're looking at. So with that said, I'm going to show you some of the different sites and some of the things that I look at when I'm looking at hotels for you. Okay? So the first one that we took a look at, it gives you kind of a good idea, lets you know the price per night, what you're paying, and some of the engines will also show you what's on special. So you can see why you're getting such a great discount and why maybe when you look at one and you look at another, they're so different. And the way that these engines work is that a lot of times the suppliers, including if you're going to Priceline or you're going to TripAdvisor or you're going through wherever, it's going to, they actually will, a lot of times they'll purchase a certain amount, or they'll be allotted a certain amount of rooms that they can look at in the particular hotel. So when you see something and it says one left at this price or two left at that price, it's because that's what they can offer you. You might be able to get something somewhere else, and then sometimes it's just completely booked and you might need to find another spot. But that's something that we can look at. Another thing that I really recommend, and I'm going to show it to you, is I would recommend going to TripAdvisor and taking a look at the reviews before you decide what you want to book. So this is a little bit of what it's going to look like. And we'll go back to the TripAdvisor here in just a little bit. So as you can see, there are different prices, and some of them may be worth a little bit more to you. And the explanation for that is, I know we work with a great vendor, Delta Vacations, and Delta personally, just for me personally, I love flying Delta. They're my favorite airline. I mean, I'll fly any airline, but I really and truly do love Delta. I love their service. I have never had an issue with them. And I really appreciate their customer service. Customer service is a big thing to me. And even though I am a budget traveler, if I go somewhere and I get great customer service, sometimes if the price difference is marginal, I'm a little more likely to pay more for that trip if I know that I'm going to get great service. So with them, in this case, they're more expensive than what I'm looking at. But I also have a membership. I have my Sky Miles from, when I fly, and Delta Vacations will actually, in some instances, and it depends, but they're running a special right now where if you book with some of their preferred hotels, you can get a certain amount back in points. So you don't necessarily have to fly with them in order to get the points added, and that's another thing that you can do. If you're working with me, you can just let me know, hey, this is what my Sky Miles number is. Can you put it in so that I can get my points? So for me and this trip, what's going to work out best for me is the first option that I showed you. And the reason being is because it's not significantly cheaper, but it is quite a bit cheaper. And the way that the budget point, or the Sky Miles points work in this instance is with their special, you have to stay, I believe it's 3 nights with them in order to receive those points. I'm just going as a short weekend trip with the kids, so for me it's not really worth it in this instance because I'm not going to get the amount of points back that's really going to make much of a difference. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose the cheaper option. So we've got the hotel figured out, and that's basically how it works. I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into what we're going to do with the next video. The next video is going to be taking a look at attractions. I'm going to go ahead and show you the TripAdvisor link. I said I'd get back to it a little bit later. And this is what you can go to. I love this for trip planning. You can go and you can see what some of the really popular attractions are. You can get an idea of pricing and what you're looking at as far as tickets go. I like to have everything booked when I go on a trip, or at least as much of it as I can, because that helps me budget when I'm there. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you the site, and then we'll wrap up. Short video today, and then then we'll continue. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that website looks like in case you've never been there. So that's what the TripAdvisor site looks like. I do recommend going to it if you're not too sure about the place you've been. If it's somewhere you've been a few times and you have an idea of where you would like to go, then that's definitely, you know, you could take it or leave it. I like it even when I've been places before because it kind of gives me an idea of if there's anything new, if anything's have changed. And there's actually been some times where there's a particular museum that I would visit when I would go to St. Augustine, and that museum isn't around anymore. If I wouldn't have gone to the TripAdvisor site, I wouldn't have known that. So, you know, it's definitely a good resource. One of the things that I would recommend, if you do decide for some reason not to book with me, one of the things that I recommend is not booking a trip or a hotel directly from TripAdvisor. In my experience, and you can always check it out, you can always take a look at the prices and see, you know, what you're looking at, but in my experience, TripAdvisor is usually a little bit more expensive than some of the other places that are available to you. Another thing that I'll let you know is if you do get a hold of me and we do book a trip together, and I'm sorry guys, my camera moved a little bit and I'm cutting off some of my shoulders. So one of the things that I do like to do is when I am looking at trips for people, I will look on those sites that are available to the public and I'll let you know, you know, this is what I can offer you and this is what they're offering. Usually I found that my trips and things that I have access to generally work out to be a little bit cheaper. But I am going to be upfront and honest with you. I'm going to let you know that right offhand when we're working on it, okay? So that's really it for this week. The next video segment that we'll do, we'll go over some of the attractions. I also have a vendor of mine, a supplier that specializes in certain cities, where if you would like to have everything completely done for you, you can have it done for you, and they're really awesome. They will do your hotel, they'll do your tickets, they'll do all of that stuff, and I can tell you a little bit about what that includes, just in case you like to go to Savannah or somewhere else. So it was great seeing you guys. Have a wonderful, fantastic week this week, and I will see you next week.